Greetings, I am Dorothy Dowling, a principal at DEI Advisors. We are a nonprofit organization dedicated to personal empowerment. I'm delighted to welcome Alison Taylor, Chief Customer Officer at American Airlines, to our DEI show. Alison has been a senior executive in the hospitality industry at American Airlines as Chief Customer Officer and at Starwood Hotels, leading global sales and distribution. Alison, welcome to our show. It is such an honor to have you with us today.
Oh, Dorothy, any time spent with you is my honor, and thank you for asking me.
Pleasure. So, Alison, you have had an amazing career. Beginning in Australia, you've led many roles throughout APAC with Starwood, and then most recently in the U.S. with American Airlines. Would you mind sharing some of the key inflection points in your career that made you such an incredible senior executive in this industry?
Oh, thank you, Dorothy. Yes, I did start in Australia. I'm Aussie, and I did a 4-year business degree in hotel management and catering. And I'd always wanted to be in hotels and in the travel industry in general. And so I started with the Sheraton Mirage Port Douglas pre-opening. And I think the inflection was just taking a few risks and trusting those people who actually were investing, time in me, and just say yes when they offered me roles. So from the Sheraton Mirage Port Douglas, which was at that time Australia's best resort, I then went to Fiji for 3 years, looking after the 3 resorts there and also opening Vomo Island. Had the great honour of adopting our beautiful son, Matthew, who's full Fijian. And then, of course, I went to Indonesia, and I was in Indonesia for 6 years. And it was a time of turmoil in Indonesia with the fall of Suharto. And so I remember getting lots of advice not to take the role. But actually, I think it was one of the things that really springboarded me to the next level, because I got so much responsibility fairly quickly, and I just kept saying yes. And so I was in Jakarta. I was then in Bali, because after the rioting in Jakarta, they moved us to Bali for our head office. And we had 20 hotels in Indonesia, and I was looking after those on the sales and marketing side and living and working at the Sheraton Nusa Indah Resort. Then I was promoted to Kuala Lumpur at the Sheraton Imperial. Again, one of my mentors asked me to join him again with Starwood. And I looked after all of Southeast Asia, India, Bangladesh, Pakistan, etc. as head of commercial. I then went to Singapore, which was our Asia Pacific head office, and had the amazing honour of working with Miguel Coe, who became just, for me, a light in everything he did, and just a great example and a very good mentor for me. He was from China. He had literally come by boat from China as a young boy, and worked his way up from there, and is now a chairman of Singapore's largest company. I trusted him, and I said yes every time he asked me to do something different, even if it scared me, even if I felt it was outside of my scope. For example, he asked me, Dorothy, one day he said, Alison, I'd like you to look after all the new opening hotels in Asia Pacific. And we were opening a hotel a week across 10 brands, whether it be India, China, Japan, South Pacific, etc. And I really didn't have experience in that area, but I had to deal with the owners a lot. I had to deal with engineers, architects, had to establish the pre-opening teams. And we were opening literally 80 hotels a year in Asia Pacific alone across brands. So I took on things because I trusted the people who asked me. And I think that really assisted me throughout my career. And then I was very fortunate to be promoted to New York to the head office of Starwood Worldwide as SVP of Sales and Distribution. And look, through all of that, I think it was honestly hard work, making sure I gathered a great team and really making sure that I trusted other people who were just wanting the best for me. And it's not always easy to trust others, is it, Dorothy? And then, of course, Marriott bought Starwood, and I was on the integration team, very fortunately. And I got a call out of the blue from the CEO of American Airlines. And I have to tell you a funny story. I didn't know who he was. I thought he was ringing me to complain about SPG. And then he finally said, "You don't know who I am?" I said, "No, sir, Mr. Parker, I don't." He said, "I'm CEO, Alison, and chairman of American Airlines, and I want you to join us." Here I am at American Airlines, and I started as SVP of Sales and Distribution. And then, of course, Robert Isom, our president, during the pandemic, which was confronting, asked me to take on additional responsibility and become Chief Customer Officer. I was scared witless. I went from having, 1,300 team members overnight to, north of 9,000. And then, of course, I got also international operations, and it's nearly 14,000 that I was looking after. And so I think it's making sure, though, you have a great team in place and that you have a support mechanism, because we all do need that support every day.
Alison, as I listen to you tell your story, your courage in taking those risks, and I know you said it was really based on the trust of the individuals that were mentoring and shaping your career and ensuring that the people that you worked with also could help you, power your success. But it truly is amazing, all of the risks that you took, the bets that you were able to embrace and walk through doors. I'm wondering if you can share with us, because I know you have an amazing husband, you have a son who is very important to you. So how did you make all these decisions as a family, and how did your family really support you through some of this change that you embraced in such a powerful way?
I've got to say, you're right. I couldn't have done anything without Simon. And so at the beginning of my career, I did say, we did establish that he would follow my career. He was a scuba diving instructor. So when we're in Fiji, when we're in Bali, Kuala Lumpur, he was able to still continue to do that, which was great. But he became a house husband, as we call it in Australia, meaning looking after our son. Now, of course, in Asia, you have the real joy of being able to have some help at home and without sort of breaking the bank. And we were very fortunate that way, and we had the most beautiful Balinese actually, she became part of our family, Pembantu. She looked after our son and helped us at the house, and she was with us for 16 years, Dorothy. So don't be scared to ask for help. Don't be scared to get help. But my husband was just at the very key of allowing me to be able to travel this much for a job, and knowing that we had security for our son and that we had, one of the parents at home with him. So I was very fortunate. Every time we moved, I would sit down with Matthew and Simon and make sure that they were okay with it. There was a time before I got the job in New York that actually I was asked to head up India, Maldives, Sri Lanka for Starwood. And I was on the cusp of accepting that, but only after talking to my son and husband. And we took a trip to Delhi to make sure that they understood. I've been to India many times. They had not been. And so I think it's about making sure you really are highly consultative. And also I would get Simon and even my son to talk to other expats who were living in the destination we were going to. It just helps to answer things like, what school would they go to? Where would we live? That type of thing. Now, we were fortunate that we were at first encompassed within a hotel where there are other expats with families, and that's very reassuring. That really does help you, because others who have already been there can help you find and navigate that destination. But also the cultural nuances are very important. Starwood were very good at doing training. I remember when we went to Indonesia, obviously the largest Muslim population in the world. All three of us were given training on how to live successfully and understand living in a Muslim community, and which we enjoyed immensely. And then the same when we went to Bali, which is Hindu. I had the joy of living in Saudi Arabia when I was growing up with my parents. So I had, had some experience in this, but gosh, we enjoyed it. But I think we enjoyed it because we were better educated about it. And so, look, Simon, 32 years of marriage, Dorothy, good grief, no wonder the man drinks. But he has been at the very core of why I'm successful.
Well, that's something that we share, Alison, because my husband also made that decision to support my career. And it's interesting to me because Harvard Business Review had an article not too long ago about women that are able to really embrace their careers in the way that you have done. And they have always said it has been because they have had a supportive
Right.
partner that has taken that second chair and always been there for their partner to allow them to take all of those career risks that you referenced. I also love the way you talk about how you worked with your family to make the decision together. I think that must have been incredibly empowering for your son and your husband to be able to share in that journey with you and also understand the kinds of commitments they were making to their own personal growth as well.
Yeah, and my son grew up in 6 countries. He's now in Sydney, Australia, but he really enjoys it, and he's just such a person of the world. He never assumes by looking at someone anything about them. He'll even say sometimes, "Oh, what passport do you carry?" Right? He is just like he is just so open to every culture and interested and informed. I love watching him when we meet other people at events, etc. It's really quite touching.
Well, I just think you've empowered him in amazing ways. And as we think about this next generation of being globalists, I'm sure he's going to be at the forefront of demonstrating how others can learn from him and the way he engages with others. So that is an amazing gift that you have shared and developed in him. I'm wondering if you can talk a little bit about your teams, Alison, because you have always been spoken about as being just an incredible team leader. Your kindness. I love being with some of your teammates because just the way they speak about you with love, but also respect. It's really amazing to be in their company. So, can you share with us some of the things that have made you such a great people leader?
I think it's important to spend time with your team, even with large teams. That's why the travel like you did, Dorothy, is important, to be with your team, not just customers, but with the team. Get to know the whole person, not just what is with you at work, but that whole 360 is very important. People need to turn up as their whole self to work, and you need to enable that. I think also empathy. And where I've worked internationally, just, frankly, educating myself about their community, about their religion, and also making sure I'm appropriate within that, I think is very important. Not turning up as an Australian all the time, because that is not right. I also think just being honest. You've got to be straightforward, don't you, Dorothy? And to build trust, hopefully do what you say you're going to do. Walk that talk. But I think it's basic practical things like that, and understanding their job and how hard it is, and thanking people. I see so many people, and I've had bosses who never said the word thank you once in my years of working with them, and I do remember that. And I don't like to give negative examples, but sometimes you do learn from bad bosses, okay? And you say, I'm not going to be that person. And so I think wanting to be the best boss you can, but also making sure you understand you're all just colleagues. You're all just there. I'm there to facilitate, enable them, making sure I can support them, making sure I get them what they need to do a great job. All of those things are my role. And also clarity of mission, making sure they understand what is their place in the success. What role do they play? Real clarity is needed, and I've seen many times where there's not clarity, you can't have success, or they don't understand their place in success, and everyone wants to be successful. I can't imagine a time when I've worked with anyone who doesn't really deep down just want to be successful, want to be recognized for that, wanting to be an important part of what is happening in the organisation they've chosen to work in. But there's some of the things that I think about sort of on a daily basis. But I also think getting that great team around you, because like having Yvonne, I've got a fabulous executive assistant. She does all the things that I'm absolutely hopeless at. And thank goodness, right? You wouldn't want me doing any of that. And I know that I can be successful because of Yvonne. Or then I've got Hank Bernadetti, who's just so fabulous when it comes to our knowledge of strategic accounts and TMCs. And enabling great people, I think, is very important. And I also know that I'm not particularly great at finance, so I really need to lean on finance and have great financial backup for everything I do. So understanding your weaknesses as well, I actually think is really important. So you need to be honest with yourself if you're going to have a great team around you and if you're going to be really good to your team. And just having some humility and some humour. I don't know how many people have given me corporate speak over the years. And I don't know about you, Dorothy. I just tune out after a while. I think, oh, my goodness, that's not authentic. So being your authentic self, having a bit of humour that's appropriate, and also making sure that you have some humility, frankly, because honestly, there are people out there like our pilots every day who are the ones that we should be thanking, not me here in a beautiful head office.
Well, you know, Alison, as you talk about just the respect and the heart of your leadership, because everyone talks about heartfelt leadership, and I think it's just the genuineness of how you care for your teams and how you respect them and how you really approach them as teammates. That really comes through, and I truly understand, because I have always been overwhelmed as I've met your teams and just the reverence and affection that they speak about you. So it's a tribute, and we can all learn from you in terms of that authenticity that you bring to your role that really touches me, and I know touches all of them. Can I move a little bit to the customer side? Because that's the other part for me that I have always had such amazing admiration for you, Alison, because you have an incredibly demanding job, and yet you give so much to the industry. And when you give, it's actually you give in terms of showing up, you're present, and you're engaged when you participate. Of course, I had the great privilege of working with you on the GBTA board, and it was something that I was always admiring, is that you really gave yourself to the commitment that you made. So can you talk about the way you've been able to establish the partnerships and really create that win-win relationship engagement that I think everyone would speak about being one of your strengths?
Yeah, I think it's very important not to work in a silo. I do sometimes see executives like you would, Dorothy, as well, who, okay, they do a good job, but they're just doing their job and don't go beyond that. We're part of a travel ecosystem that is just so important. Look how we all got together during the pandemic, Dorothy, right? Now, I think you are the best in class when it comes to this, Dorothy, so you should be answering this question, not me. Really, you've given way more than anyone I've ever seen. And I really mean that. So because you care, I care about this industry like you do, obviously. And I think you must carve out time to be part of the greater industry and support that greater industry, whether it's our corporate customers, whether it's our agencies. And frankly, we need to make sure that we are present, because this is a great career for people as well. And we want to showcase that women can have a great career in this industry, and they do. Look at the president of the cruise lines who are female, etc. It's really just great to see. So I like to be present. I also like to be able to showcase that women and diversity plays a strong place in the travel industry. And that's a great thing for anyone. So I actually think it's part of your role to do this, but I also know not everyone does that well. I must say that Robert Isom recently asked me to spend more time with him in regards to travel associations. He's on the USTOA, CEO forum, but he'd like to spend more time in this area. He said, I've been heads down, looking after American Airlines. He said, now after the pandemic, when you can put your head up a bit and just look further afield to our travel industry and beyond, and what we facilitate in regards to economy in the markets where we work, both domestically and globally, and it wants to play a place in that. And I was really relieved, because I have felt that American Airlines could take more of a senior role in the industry, and I think that's what Robert's next step will be.
Well, that's really encouraging, Alison, and I truly agree with you that during the pandemic, the nature of our industry partnering and supporting each other through that very difficult time, I think really struck new ways of all of us working together. So, and I do agree that when we think about the customer, they do not think of all the discrete parts of the travel experience. It's an experience for them. So the way we work together to really make that experience even better, I think allows all of the different parts of the industry to be successful together. But again, I thank you for all the time and energy that you have dedicated and been such an important role model to others in showing how you show up and participate.
And one thing, you think about it, Dorothy, you and I wouldn't have become friends if it hadn't been for the associations we sit on. And that, I think, you can't underestimate the great, inspiring people you meet. I also think it's very educational. You need to stay relevant. I see a lot of people not keep up with their education. I mean, Dorothy, you've just sent me several books to read, so this is important. And so I think that on these associations, I also learn a lot. So I like to try and listen a lot, because it just helps me stay up to date.
I agree. I think that peer mentorship and the learning that we bring to each other is incredibly powerful. So I thank you for pointing that out. I wonder if we can speak a little bit about adversity, because I think it's amazing the kind of risks that you've taken throughout your career. Our industry has a lot of ups and downs through the business cycle, but you have always demonstrated the power of resilience as you've led through all of the change and also some of the difficulties that we've all had to power through. So I'm wondering if there's anything that you can speak to that has really made you the resilient person that you are today, Alison.
Gosh, I think it's understanding that in this industry, or probably in most, right, there is going to be very tough times, and it's very cyclical. So being there for the good times plus the bad times, because know that it will come back again. People love the travel. You've seen it after the pandemic and the amount of demand we have now. I think one of the things that may have shaped me feeling like I can be resilient is after the tsunami in Thailand, which was obviously devastating, and we had very unfortunate deaths at our Le Méridien in Phuket, and also the Sheraton Grand Phuket, etc., and of course the many thousands who were affected by that. And it also affected us in the Maldives and elsewhere, and frankly, Indonesia and Malaysia. I went to Thailand for a couple of months after that to work. Miguel Koh, the chairman, came with me and others, and we worked to assist the travel industry get back up on its feet in Phuket and Koh Samui that was just so badly affected. What I saw there, I will never, never forget. It was horrifying to see both the customers and the team members and what had happened. I won't go into the detail, but I think I still think of it often, and I think it's made me see that if we can get through times like that, and then obviously the dreadful times after 9/11, I think it does make you resilient. And while I don't wish that on anyone, I think it has shaped me feeling like I can get through things, and that there is always light at the end of the tunnel. Because really, to think otherwise, it doesn't help anyone. You need to be optimistic, not Pollyanna, but optimistic. And I've been through some times, probably like you have, Dorothy, where you thought, how are we going to recover from this? Even those days leading into the pandemic, where we were getting, and I mean losing billions in a 2-week space, is just heart-wrenching. But seeing lives lost at 9/11 and what it did to the travel industry afterwards globally, and especially, of course, here in North America, but also after the tsunami and even after the India hotel attacks in Mumbai. It goes on and on. Our fire in the Sheraton in Egypt, etc. And I have been on the global crisis committees of both of the companies I've worked for. And I think all of this does give you hope, though, that we do bounce back, but we need to be part of the answer and that solution. Don't leave it to someone else to help bounce back. We need to do it together. And I think that has helped shape me. It doesn't harden you, I hope, to the loss that you see, but I think it does give you some hope that even after the very worst, the travel industry can respond, because people need to travel, whether that be for leisure or frankly business, to get back up on their feet.
Well, thank you for sharing that, because just walking through all of the tragedies that our industry has faced and found ways to comfort those that were impacted and demonstrating your commitment, Alison. I mean, the fact that you went to Thailand after that incredible tragedy, to me, just again speaks to this people commitment that has powered your career. You always have people at the center of your decision-making power. And I fundamentally believe when you give, it does come back. And I'm sure that is what has also made you more resilient. As others have come back, I'm sure it has given you a boost in terms of seeing how they have recovered through some of those challenges. So again, kudos to you, Alison, because you have led by example, and that's something that, again, I think we can all learn from you. So thank you. I'm just wondering, I know you've spoken to some things in this area, Alison, but I'm wondering if you have a personal mantra that shapes a lot of the ways that you go to work every day and think about your teams and others that you have such great influence with.
A personal mantra would honestly be, and I know that this is probably one you've heard so many times, just honestly, be honest with yourself and others. You need that. I see so many who aren't, and I really value that. To build trust, credibility, honesty and clarity is at the very key, but walk the talk. If you say you're going to do something, do it, and do it within a time frame that makes it acceptable. Because I see also people who overpromise. I come from the sales world, and there can be a lot of that. But I think I built credibility with others through really having a mantra of walking the talk, doing what you say you're going to do, and being honest with others as you can be as well, and caring for them. It's really that simple. I can't say I've got some Gandhi quote that I live and die by every day. I'd love to be able to say that, but it does get down to those just practical things. I like to be authentic and practical with people, because I think then they can relate to you, that you're relevant with them, and also just understand where they're coming from. Spend a day in their shoes, and then you'll understand.
So, when you speak, Alison, what I hear is this voice of just being incredibly self-aware, and you are so aware of yourself, and you're so aware of others, and then you do bring the competency of delivering and executing. And I sometimes think that individuals that are incredibly kind and invest in people the way you do, sometimes people don't realize the power of the competency that's behind that, because trust is built in relationships, but you do have to deliver. And so walking that talk and making sure you follow through, I think, is a lesson that everyone needs to pay attention to. So thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Dorothy.
I'm wondering if I can ask you, because of the career journey you've had and the family decisions that you've had to make, I know you talked about the consultative role that you always took in terms about embarking on any kind of career change with your family. But how did you balance the kind of commitment that your career has taken and really try to find some harmony for your family and people that you care about?
Well, I think I'm a really bad example of this, Dorothy, I have to say. I look back now and made so many mistakes. Um, yes, I might have been there watching my son on a Saturday morning playing rugby, but I was also on my mobile phone talking to someone, who's opening a hotel in Shanghai. I'm not sure I was present. My body might have been present, but my mind wasn't. I was always on, excuse me, I'm going to age myself, my BlackBerry, then my mobile, right? Constantly. And I do mean constantly. I mean night and day. It would be the last thing I looked at night, and still actually I do this, first thing I look at in the morning. It's really with one eye open, lying in bed, looking at my phone. So I am not a good example of this. So I really do talk a lot to my team and my females. I had a one-on-one just the other day, and she was saying, how do you juggle all this? Well, I said, gosh, I think it's my family who's suffered. So I have to say, I look back and I've made mistakes in this area. I think people should always take all of their vacation. They should make sure they're carving out time for, doing their aerobics, going to the gym. I don't do that well. I make a lot of mistakes in that. And also, frankly, being with their family. And when I say being with them, not just physically, I mean mentally as well. And so my family still laugh about that. But I was very fortunate they allowed it, but not everyone is so giving. And I think there was a time in our marriage when my husband looked at me and just said, could you put that goddamn thing down? And I could tell he was just at his wit's end. So I really think just being present with your family is just as important as being present at work. I have a great executive here called Talia, and what she does, got 3 lovely kids. She does a great job here with us, managing director of our customer relations, etc. She makes sure that she has breakfast with them, a full breakfast that she makes every morning, and sits down and spends that hour and a half with her kids every morning. I just love things like that. And I look back and I didn't do that. Now, I didn't have to do housework because we were in Asia and we had a penbanta, a housemate. We were so fortunate, right? So it did allow me, free me up a bit. But I've got to say, I really hope that the women in tourism and travel of the future don't have to do the hours that was required of us, Dorothy. And I think they need to be stricter about that. And hopefully that is a lot more acceptable now as well. And those that might be in the hotel world, which is just 24/7, I think some boundaries have to be set, especially when you're living in the property as well. So I'm not a poster child for that. And I look back and I made a lot of mistakes, but now I insist people take their vacations there and what they need to have a really great home life and have balance.
Well, and honesty that you have that you have shared with us, Alison, I appreciate that, because I do think many women that were early, like us, in that career journey, those decisions were there wasn't a lot of flexibility, and I do hope that there is going to be far more thoughtfulness in terms of the whole person in the work environment, and that everyone can start to structure work differently so that we can allow our employees to have a life beyond work and support them. But I really appreciate you sharing that, because I do think your story is one that is reflective of many women that have had the kind of success that you have had, and being honest about that and expressing some of those regrets and saying, I wish I could, but all you can do is be honest about it and help others potentially make different choices. So thank you for that. I'm wondering if I can move to this last question, Alison, because you made a pretty momentous decision. You're leaving an incredibly high-powered role. You're going to write your next chapter in terms of what that looks like. So I'm wondering if you might share with us a little bit about this decision to return to Australia and what your next chapter might be.
Well, actually, Dorothy, you inspired me. I felt it's very courageous to make these decisions, Dorothy, that you made. And you made that before me. And I thought, oh, hats off to you. Actually, during the pandemic, when we couldn't see our son for nearly 2.5 years because Australia was like in lockdown for so long, I thought I'm the worst mother in the world. And look, he's an adult now, and we talked every day, but that's not the same. And so then I sort of had an inkling that I thought this is sort of unacceptable for me to be this far away from my family and not even be able to see them. So I really want to go back to Australia. We've been outside Australia now for over 30 years. And while we've loved every minute of it, enough. And my husband's mother is in her 90s. And so we do really want to go back and see family and friends. But I also have a lot of interests that over the years I've just let go because it was all about work and then family, of course. And so, you know, I was very keen, horse rider, etc. And, you know, I love my travel. I've still got a long list of countries to see, etc. So I want to spend some time on the things that Simon, myself, and Matthew want to do, and I'll be freed up to do that. But I do want to remain within the travel ecosystem, whether that be on associations, whether that be on different boards, however that plays out. I just want to keep giving back. And I have been asked to mentor some great females here and in other organisations, and I'm going to continue to do that. And so I'm so excited. And I think that's a good place to be. And I'm in a whole transition year. So it's not like you're falling off a cliff. One day you have 300 emails, next day nothing. You know, so I'll slowly sink into the sunset and return to Australia. So feeling good about that. And American Airlines does succession planning very well. So I've been very fortunate that I feel really comfortable with how this is just playing out. And so, look, I can't say there's not regret there. Leaving the team just fills me with horror at the thought of it, right? But I do know they're in great hands, and I think that helps. When you know that the people have taken on your teams are fabulous, that really helps. So, yeah, we're excited. So wish us well. And I know that you and I will stay in touch too, Dorothy. I've got to say, you know that I'm your number one fan. I hope you know that. But you actually inspired me to think about it seriously, and hence the announcement.
Well, again, thank you for sharing sort of what drove your decision, Alison, because I do think the honesty and authenticity of sharing allows others to make those kinds of decisions too. So I always appreciate how open you are to being so open to sharing your perspective. I just wonder, because DEI advisors, our goal is about empowering personal success. Is there any final piece of advice that you would like to share with our audience beyond all the wonderful gems that you have offered us thus far?
Yeah, be part of the solution, mentor others, champion others. Don't spend your days talking about people. Spend your days lifting them up. I think it's very important to not be that Debbie Downer and that one person who spirals everything down. Be the person who lifts others up and hopefully looks for solutions. And I think it'll all come back to you in spades. I really do. And yeah, I think it's just so important in life as well to try and find a partner who understands what you want out of life and is going to be in that journey with you. I've been very fortunate to have that, as is Dorothy, obviously. And so that really has helped me enormously.
Well, if I could just say again, thank you, Alison. I do think that aspect of recognizing that your leadership is contagious. And when you bring that positivity to your role, everyone gets to share in that positivity. So I thank you for all that you've done for the industry. I thank you for taking the time to be with us today and share so much of your learnings with all of us. And I also want to thank our audience, because I think if you've enjoyed this interview, I hope you'll come and visit us on our website, deiadvisors.org, where you'll see other webcasts and podcasts from other leaders just like Alison that will empower your knowledge and fuel your spirit. So thank you again, Alison, and I hope to see all of our audience join us to look at this interview again and others. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Dorothy. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, Alison.